Welcome to Tutors Plus, IB English. I'm Dexter Haywood, IB English tutor, examiner and workshop leader. And in this video, we're going to focus on something deceptively powerful in paper 1, the introduction, and how to write one that actually anchors your commentary. A strong introduction doesn't just begin your commentary. It shapes the examiner's expectations for everything that follows. It shows whether you understand the text's purpose, whether your angle is interpretive, and whether your analysis has direction. So today I'll walk you through exactly how to write an introduction that signals clarity, control, and conceptual understanding, and sets you up for a top brand IB English Paper 1. Now, most IB English students write their Paper 1 introduction far too early, before they've actually understood the text. And as an examiner, you can tell instantly. A weak introduction summarizes, whereas a strong introduction interprets. And that difference shows up within the first few lines that you write. If your introduction is vague or descriptive or unfocused, the commentary has to work twice as hard. It doesn't come naturally. Whereas if the introduction is sharp or purposeful and anchored in that meaning, the rest of your analysis becomes much easier to follow and far easier to reward. This is how to write an IB English Paper 1 introduction that hooks the examiner and sets up a clear, confident, top-round commentary. Now, your introduction has to do more than just announce the text. You need to show your understanding of purpose, of tone, perspective, and underlying intention. And remember that examiners read dozens of essays, scripts in a row, and an introduction that shows clarity and control will stand out immediately. So the goal of your introduction is simple. Give the examiner confidence in your reading. And it shouldn't be long, it just needs to be precise. There are 4 things that your introduction must accomplish. And they're not as a checklist, but a natural progression. Firstly, frame the text. Not mechanically, but clearly. In this, you mean text type, situation, purpose, and so on. You need to establish the central message or effect. If you don't articulate what the text is doing, the commentary will lose direction. You need to indicate the direction of your interpretation. The examiner needs to know your angle, the conceptual path that you are taking. And you need to signal the key methods, not a list of techniques, but a sense of how the writer constructs that meaning. And when these elements blend together, the introduction becomes that roadmap that we're looking for, and not a summary. It doesn't tell the examiner what happens, it tells them what the text means, which is what they're looking for. You might often ask, when do you write the introduction? And here is the answer, and it's tricky. You don't write it first. You write it after you've read, annotated, and planned your core ideas. During the time when you're reading, you can shape the opening, the situation, the tone, the general message, but you only write your introduction after you know where your commentary is going. And your introduction becomes much stronger when it's built on your interpretation after you've finished everything, after you've finished your reading, your annotations, not your guess beforehand. So you don't force your commentary to follow the introduction. You build the introduction once you know the commentary. And there are 3 weaknesses when it comes to these introductions that come up constantly. And that's describing instead of interpreting. And it's one of the most common weaknesses. Students might begin with something like the article is about pollution, or the text discusses loneliness. The speech talks about technology. But this isn't an introduction. It's just a factual label. It tells the examiner what the text mentions, but nothing about what the writer is doing with it. So description answers the questions, what is the text about? Which is obvious because the examiner already knows they have the text. Whereas interpretation answers, what is the writer trying to make the reader think, feel, or realize? And that's what your introduction needs to show. The listing techniques is another issue. And it's a very common weakness when students write with everything that they can find and see. The writer uses imagery, rhetorical questions, statistics, and emotive language, which doesn't tell the examiner anything about meaning. It's a technique shopping list, and examiners can't order a list because it suggests that you're thinking mechanically, that your introduction was written before you understood the text. So strong introduction signals method within meaning, through pointed diction, tonal shifts, and strategically framed anecdotes, the writer guides the audience towards recognizing the broader implications of digital dependency. And you see how this shows the awareness of the method without listing. It has a conceptual center, which is what the examiners are looking for. And remember, if you're finding this helpful, feel free to click like and subscribe below so you don't miss the next IB English guide. I'll see you there. Another one is jumping straight into analysis. In line 3, the writer repeats the phrase da 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 da, or the metaphor in the first paragraph shows da da da. This is much too early. You're zooming in before establishing the broader conceptual landscape, and it confuses an examiner because they don't yet know the angle or the purpose of your commentary. And it makes it sound as though you're commenting randomly. You're not building an argument as such. So once you place the examiner inside that conceptual frame, then the close analysis in the body paragraph makes sense. And this is where students often get stuck. They know what not to do, but they're often not sure what a strong introduction should sound like. So let's make this a little bit clearer. If the introduction shouldn't describe, it shouldn't list techniques, and it shouldn't dive into line-by-line analysis, then what should it do? And it's where a lot of students try to reinvent the wheel, when in reality you only need one or two simple methods, a mental structure to really keep your introduction focused, interpretive, and logically shaped. And that's where HATMAT becomes incredibly useful. Not as a formula, but as a thinking tool to help you structure your intro. And it gives you that spine of your introduction without trapping you into a template. You have the H, the hook, which is a clean framing of the moment or situation behind the text. And it could be something enticing, it should be something controversial, something that drags in the attention straight away. Then we have A for author. Name them if it's given. If not, identify the voice. Remember text type. Is it an opinion column, a speech, article, letter, blog? Show genre awareness. The M for the message, the conceptual center of your introduction. What the writer wants the reader to recognize, question, or feel. And then we have the audience for the second A, which is explicit or implicit. It could be either. And this informs the tone and the strategy. And we finish with the last T, the thesis or the trajectory, which is your angle, the direction that your commentary will take. And when blended, HATMAT creates that clarity and direction without sounding formulaic. So as a general example to see it in action, let's go through. In this opinion column, the writer, so-and-so, challenges the reader's assumptions about technological dependency, adopting a skeptical yet persuasive tone to highlight how constant connectivity erodes personal autonomy. Through deliberate shifts in perspective, pointed diction, and strategic anecdotal framing, the text guides the audience towards recognizing both the emotional and societal consequences of digital over-reliance. And you see how this is controlled, it's interpretive, and it gives the examiner your direction. It shows them where you're going. So finding the message when a text feels complicated is one thing to follow HATMAT, to have all these ideas. But when the text is dense or abstract, it becomes much harder. But a tip here is to not look for what the writer is saying. Look for what the writer wants you to think or to feel. So ask yourself, what emotion is being shaped? What tension is being exposed? What perspective is the reader being nudged into? And what assumptions is being challenged? What consequence is being highlighted? And that's the conceptual core of your introduction. And it's what separates a mid-band introduction from a top-band one. So by the end of your introduction, the examiner should know three things: that you understand the text, that you understand the task, and that your commentary will take an interpretive analytical path. And if those signals are present, you're already on the path to a strong paper one. Now, if you'd like personalized guidance practicing writing your paper one introductions, structuring your commentary, or refining your analysis, you can book a session with me, Dexter Haywood, or another IB English specialist at Tutors Plus. And remember, if this helps you, click like and subscribe below so you don't miss the next IB English guide. And the best of luck with your paper one. Bye-bye.